Good morning and welcome to Korea Today, brought to you live from Seoul, Korea.
Who would lead the North Korean delegation? Much hinges on that as the two Koreas prepare to meet for 2 days in Seoul. The exchange of names will likely happen today.
And an official at the presidential office says the level of the delegation should match. More coming up in the headlines.
And on the business front, prospects for K-Water to procure a massive water project in Thailand look good. Coming up on In Print.
Green technology is what's on the rise in the face of the increased effects of global warming. What are some of these eco-friendly developments?
The second most common cancer among women is breast cancer. That's jumped dramatically over the past years. What do you have to know about it? We'll answer that live on this Tuesday, June 11th, 2013.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
Good to have you with us on this Tuesday morning. You're watching Korea Today.
Now, yesterday was a hot one indeed. Temperatures were lingering above the 30-degree mark, but the electrical levels or electricity supply levels actually went very low. The power shortage level hit level 1 and a warning was issued. And although the temperatures are expected to be a little bit lower and a little bit cooler today, experts are predicting that the power shortage level will hit either number 1 or even number 2 today. But with the Hanbit 3 reactor online and slowly gaining full capacity, and it's expected to reach full capacity by Thursday, there will be some relief in the near future.
Right, and we're expecting some rain later today, so that should help ease the temperatures somewhat. In the meantime, we should all try to do what we can to conserve energy, and that means turn off the air conditioning and use the good old fan.
Go back to the old good old fans.
Right,
that never
if
really
this
break
doesn't
down,
work,
right?
I have something else for you. You want to see?
An electrical power fan.
Right, battery run.
Okay, you know what?
So,
let's just go ahead and put that here, and we'll
Right.
use that here for now because we're
throughout
trying
the
to conserve
entire
a little
show.
bit of electricity ourselves.
All right, we'll turn that on, and we'll now go to Na Hyung-kyung for a check on the day's headlines.
With only a day to go until the government-level inter-Korean talks, the two Koreas are busy forming their respective delegations. The South Korean government says Wednesday's meeting, which will take place in Seoul, is unprecedented in its format.
The previous 21 rounds of ministerial talks will stand as they are, but the upcoming government-level talks are of a different framework.
Now, whether it will be a cabinet-level meeting or that of a lower rank will depend on the 5 members of each delegation. The local media speculate it's unlikely that Pyongyang will send its Minister for Inter-Korean Affairs, Kim Yang-gun, to the negotiating table, in which case Seoul will also not have its Unification Minister Ryu Gil-jae lead the South's delegation. The venue, in the meantime, has been set. The two Koreas will meet at the Grand Hilton Hotel in Seoul, also used for the 2007 ministerial talks. And President Park Geun-hye has ordered related ministries to thoroughly prepare for the inter-Korean meeting so it meets the expectations of the South Korean people. Now, her comments came during a meeting with her foreign affairs and security officials and senior secretaries on Monday. President Park asked them to ensure the talks reflect the South Korean government's principles with respect to North Korea issues. A high-ranking official at the presidential office in the meantime told reporters that he believes Pyongyang should apply international standards to the selection of its delegation. He emphasized that should the quote-unquote level of the two delegations fail to match, it would be difficult for the two sides to have faith in one another from the beginning. Lawmakers had many questions for government officials allegedly involved in trying to sway public opinion during last year's presidential race. Justice Minister Hwang Kyo-an, who is accused of influencing the investigation, said Monday that he is in no position to intervene with the prosecution's case. Hwang added he believes prosecutors will conduct a neutral investigation and make an accurate judicial assessment as well. Monday was the first day of the 4-day government inquiry session at the National Assembly. On Tuesday, lawmakers will focus on foreign affairs and inter-Korean relations, followed by economic issues on Wednesday, before wrapping up with social and educational issues on Thursday. Former President Roh Tae-woo may have 3 billion won, or roughly $2.7 million under borrowed named accounts. Authorities are reportedly looking into the case as part of their efforts to collect fines from both Roh and his predecessor Chun Doo-hwan. Reports say an employee at Roh's brother's company, identified by his last name Chung, was actually the former president's chauffeur, and that Chung had millions of dollars stashed away in 9 different bank accounts. Given that Chung's salary was only about $35,000, authorities suspect the funds belong to the former president. Roh served as the president of Korea from 1988 to 1993 and was ordered by the court in 1997 to pay fines of more than $200 million for leading a military coup and accepting bribes during his rule.
Good morning, everyone. We do have a mixed batch of stories on this Tuesday, so let's go ahead and begin with 동아일보 this morning, which has a picture of President Park Geun-hye and her table of advisors discussing the inter-Korean talks slated to launch tomorrow at Seoul's Grand Hilton Hotel. You can see among those in attendance was Defense Minister Kim Kwan-jin, as well as Foreign Affairs Minister Yoon Byung-se, and also Unification Minister Ryu Kil-jae. Here, President Park expressed her hope for progress and directed her staff to make thorough preparations ahead of that 2-day meeting. All right, scooting over to 조선일보 now, similar picture here. It also has a headline that reads, "We'll match the rank of our chief delegate with the North's." Now, the article says that it was at this meeting that the government decided to first watch who Pyongyang will send as its top representative, then choose who will represent Seoul at the now dubbed government-level talks. Now, on the retitling the meeting to Inter-Korean government-level meetings, it has Chun Hae-sung, who is the head of the Unification Ministry's policy-setting office, as explaining that it was a move appropriate to the two sides ushering in a fresh relations and a new era, while unnamed government officials say that matching of the ranks is critical in trust building, as it called on Pyongyang to treat the gathering to international standards as it does in its dealings with Beijing, for example. All right, we'll go ahead and leave that story there and head on over to JoongAng Daily. Its image reflects its title, The Hottest June in 106 Years. The caption says that the first 10 days of June recorded the highest average high in the month of June, 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit since the year 1907. And this picture was taken just yesterday when the high in Yeouido recorded 32.2 degrees. You can just see the heat rising there, can't you?
It was a painfully hot day yesterday, but the picture, I have to say, looks pretty artsy, Van Gogh-like a little bit, no?
It's almost like you got a program and then did one of those Photoshops.
It looks like
something.
an oil painting. It absolutely does. But according to the caption, it's just a shot of the heat rising there.
It was definitely a scorcher yesterday.
Quite remarkable indeed. All right, we'll leave that there and head on over to Gyeongyang Shinmun. Take a look at their front page. It is treating as its top story a story out of the United States of former CIA technical assistant Edward Snowden, who voluntarily came out to the public yesterday to explain why he decided to leak confidential top secret National Security Agency files. Now, the headline captures this as it reads, "I don't want to live in a society that records everything I do," in quotes. And in an interview with UK-based The Guardian, Snowden said he was very much aware of the repercussions he would face for leaking these documents, but he decided the cost would be worth the benefit of having the public aware of the extent of the U.S. government's surveillance of its citizens, and that he never had the intention of hiding his identity. Meanwhile, the image at the center of the newspaper shows a demonstration held yesterday near the private residence of former President Chun Doo-hwan. It says that they called the government to collect any property acquired through corrupt means and to hold any misdeeds accountable. The group there gathered yesterday. And finally, scooting over to our business daily, we're going to go ahead and scoot to the side story right here. And the headline reads, Korea secures Thai 4 river project worth 6.2 trillion won or 5.5 million US dollars. Now, the article says Korea Water Resources Corporation, or K-Water, was named as a preferred bidder for Thailand's massive water management project, and it anticipates it will procure about 56% of the overall project, while 38% of it will go to China. The paper cites an official as saying that Korea did win the largest scale project in the bigger picture, putting it in a better position to win the final bid, which is anticipated to be announced later this month. And as you know, Thailand has been pushing the mega water management project since the massive floods that it saw back in 2011. And that does wrap your look at what's in print on this Tuesday. Here comes your market action from Monday.
The upcoming inter-Korean talks has dominated the headlines here in South Korea. The meeting comes after many months of high tensions on the peninsula and a marathon working-level negotiation over the weekend. So what can we expect from these talks? Take a look first.
An ongoing deadlock in inter-Korean relations saw a dramatic turning point last Thursday.
We proposed holding North-South talks to discuss normalization of the Kaesong Industrial Park and manned Kumgang tour operations in light of the upcoming June 15th joint declaration.
To resolve various inter-Korean issues, we propose holding minister-level talks in Seoul on June 12th.
And with this, working-level talks between the two Koreas were held at the truce village of Panmunjom to fine-tune details for the first government-level talks in 6 years. During the meeting, the North and South discussed the agenda of the upcoming talks, including the fate of the joint Kaesong Industrial Complex, the Mount Kumgang tours, and other issues such as the families separated from the Korean War. But the two sides also showed differences in opinions on several fronts. All eyes are now on the upcoming talks to see whether the first government-level meeting will produce concrete results and become the first step into a new relationship.
And to shed some light on whether this could indeed become the first step into a new relationship, we have Professor Lee Jung-hoon from Yonsei University joining us now. Thank you for coming in, Professor. And when the two countries sit down tomorrow for dialogue, so what do you think both sides will try to get out of the talks?
Well, I mean, we've had some glimpses of what each side will be focusing on. South Korea, of course, is very much interested in normalizing the Kaesong Industrial Park. Normalizing Kaesong Industrial Park means not just returning some of the industrial people back into Kaesong, but we want some internationalized global standards to make sure that not only their personal well-being, but also their resources and all their businesses are guaranteed. That's not been the case as recently witnessed. North Korea has been focusing on, for example, celebrating the June 15th event, which of course marks the meeting of the former president Kim Dae-jung and Kim Jong-il, the Kim Jong-un's father, as some kind of a political sort of showcase of inter-Korean relations. And probably North Korea, by focusing this, wants to return to the engagement ways or sunshine ways of doing things in terms of inter-Korean relations. So we'll just have to see as to, once they sit down tomorrow, at the meeting, where the focus of the delegations will be put on. We'll see.
And the talks took on a new format. It's been labeled as government-level talks as opposed to the ministerial talks. So why the sudden change, and what does it all mean?
Well, because we've been hoping for a ministerial level, which is exactly that. We want ministerial level meeting, meaning that Yu Gil-jae, our Minister of Unification, will be our head of the delegation. And we would expect North Korea to reciprocate that by sending Kim Yang-gun, who would be sort of like the counterpart of Yu Gil-jae.
Right.
But they've not committed to that yet. So we just don't know who they'll be sending as the head of the delegation. And that's disappointing because it's just one day before the actual meeting that's going to take place, which hasn't taken place for 5-6 years. And you would think that it doesn't take much to make at least that kind of commitment. But North Korea, as always, is under the veil, and they're always surrounded by secrecies and surprises. So we don't know that yet, and we're hoping that they will send Kim Yang-gun so that it would be a ministerial level. But we'll see again tomorrow.
And North Korea brought up, of course, the issue of the Kaesong Industrial Complex, as well as the tours to the Mount Kumgang Resort, as well as other humanitarian issues as well. Why now is the question?
Well, I mean, you have to consider the context of where North Korea is coming from. I mean, we've had how many months of North Korean provocations, all sorts of tough talks and rhetorics coming from North Korea. They're talking about how they're a nuclear power. They're talking about attacking South Korea and the United States and the world with their nuclear capability. And then all of a sudden, the talks. And this is coming a couple of days prior to the actual summit meeting between President Obama and President Xi Jinping of China. And there's been a relay of summit meetings between President Obama and Park Geun-hye last month.
Right.
And then, of course, Xi Jinping, Obama. And towards the latter part of June, we're expecting President Park Geun-hye and Xi Jinping's meeting. So I think North Korea feels tremendous pressure as such that maybe the international trend, which would include China, is going against North Korea, particularly on the nuclear weapons issue. So I think they're trying to shake up the current setup so that even more sanctions might be applied to North Korea on this issue.
Do you think North Korea will there's no mention of the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula at this meeting, which will take place tomorrow, but do you think North Korea will go ahead and maybe consider talking about it in the future with the international community and related countries?
Well, the six-party talks, of course, has been the venue for discussing North Korea's nuclear issue or denuclearization. And North Korea has officially said that they're done with the six-party talks.
Right.
Their constitution stipulates that North Korea is a nuclear power. So it's going to be very difficult at this juncture, especially having had 3 nuclear tests in North Korea, to reverse that. For Kim Jong-un, having committed to become a nuclear power, as well as jointly, he's committing to economic development. I don't see how that's going to be possible, if they really hold on to the nuclear power. So to reverse that and to somehow get North Korea back on track to disable or dismantle its nuclear weapons program is going to be very, very difficult. Now, the question is, will this be an issue come our meeting between the two sides, inter-Korean meeting tomorrow? Of course, North Korea probably have nothing to do with this. But I think for us, yes, other issues are important as well. Humanitarian aid, Kaesong, Kumgang Mountain tourism resuming. Those are all important, but I think we have to have a master plan and the ultimate goal, which of course is the denuclearization, and it has to be mentioned.
These talks in some ways could be the testing ground for both administration, for the Park Geun-hye administration and for the young North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Would this, in relations with Pyongyang, how do you think this will be played as a testing ground for the Park Geun-hye administration?
Well, the Park Geun-hye administration has focused on the trust building or the trust process, dealing with North Korea. That we deal with small things first, And step by step, we build trust. And ultimately, of course, and make no mistake about this, I mean, it's not just about engaging North Korea and providing, without questions asked, assistance to North Korea. The Park Geun-hye government is very much committed to denuclearizing North Korea. That has to be the ultimate goal. Otherwise, what's the point of all the inter-Korean dialogue and providing aid if North Korea is not going to denuclearize? So that's there. And we're hoping that step by step, we will be getting closer to that end.
Do you think North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will maybe turn the table and mend ties with Seoul using this inter-Korean talks this come Wednesday?
Well, I don't think we can expect that kind of a leapfrogging result because it's just the first meeting in how many years? 5, 6 years. So. Just the fact that there's going to be dialogue is a good thing.
Right.
It's certainly much better than provocations coming out of North Korea.
And no talks.
That's right. But we have to remain very vigilant and very disciplined on this issue. And we cannot be following North Korea's lead. They're trying to domesticate us in a way. So we have to be very vocal about what we want, what our ultimate goal is, and then, show them what our grand vision is, and that these little puzzles are just puzzles towards the end goal, which of course is the denuclearization and improving the livelihood of the North Korean people. And I hope that our delegation makes sure that this kind of clear message is conveyed to the North Koreans.
Right, so don't get our hopes too high, but stay vigilant and stay rigid with our policy as well.
But positive.
Positive policies. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Lee Jong-won, for joining us today.
You're welcome.
We do appreciate it. Thank you.
With more effects of global warming and climate change on the rise, we look into new technologies that are being developed to slow down and counter this trend. What research is underway to make greener technology?
It's been so hot these days that dozens of people have fallen victim to heat stroke and heat exhaustion. So stay out of the sun.
That's right. Staying out of the sun might be a better idea, although we are going to get some relief. We're not sure exactly how much. We'll find out more on the weather with Dami joining us.
Before we do that,
we're going to be using that for now. Good morning, Dami.
Good morning.
All right, good morning, everyone. I have some good news for you both and for everyone that's watching. Right now, we're reporting live from Chungdanggu, Seoul, and it looks like we do have mostly cloudy skies this morning. We will be seeing overcast skies throughout the day. Current temperatures right now are about 23 degrees Celsius, but to tell you the truth, it feels a lot cooler because there is a light breeze that is blowing. It feels very nice, refreshing under the shade since the sun is covered by the clouds. Now, later in the day, we do have some rain forecast around the afternoon, but not to worry, it's not the beginning of monsoon season just yet. We will be seeing light drizzles, nothing too significant. However, something that will be significantly different for today is the highs. So let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers across the nation. Here in Seoul, our lows are 22 and highs will be slightly warm at 26. Daejeon will peak up to 27 and Daegu at 25. Gangneung will look much cooler with lows at 16 and highs only at 20. Gwangju looks most warm at 28 and Jeju Island will be fairly cooler at 23. Now tomorrow we will be seeing nationwide showers and cooler highs. Hopefully it won't be too humid, so let's cross our fingers for that. That's all I have for the weather, and don't forget your umbrellas. I'll be back in a few moments.
Thank you very much, Tommy, for the weather updates. And we have been talking about the warm weather. Summers have been extended by almost a month nearly, and the temperatures are reaching new heights. Now, doing your part to stop and to at least slow down global warming and climate change, it's not an option, it's almost a must. And to talk more about the technologies, we have David Kim joining us. Good morning.
You glad to keep that in your hand for
Yes,
the rest of the
I'm
show?
going to be
Okay, all
using
right.
this.
Just checking. Good morning, David.
Morning. Well, one of the things we're looking at is more energy efficient ways that we can use power, and also better, cleaner ways of power generation. These are things that we're really going to be concerned about as we look forward, especially with issues of global warming, dwindling fossil fuels, and other natural resources. So there are a bunch of new technologies that we'll look at today that will hopefully ease this burden for us in the future. With cars being one of the main suspects behind global warming, efforts to develop eco-friendly cars are on the rise. The Korea Institute of Energy Research recently developed a new vehicle that uses a hybrid fuel that combines ammonia and gasoline. Because this car runs mostly on ammonia, there's almost no carbon dioxide emitted.
Huh, interesting.
By swapping out 70% of gasoline with ammonia, the amount of carbon dioxide emitted from the vehicle can be reduced by 70%.
Another strength of ammonia is that it's low in explosiveness and it's easy to store and transport, which is why it's an attractive fuel. Not only that, the dual fuel car can be used simply by swapping out a few parts from any regular petroleum-run vehicle. And it's not only ammonia. Korea is the first to have developed hydrogen fuel cell cars that run on self-generated power. The hydrogen car excels in charging time and distance of travel. Meanwhile, the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology succeeded in creating an electric car that can be charged wirelessly via electromagnetic transmission. These vehicles receive power from strips installed under the road surface.
Because the vehicle is charged as it drives along the road, there is no need to build charging points, and it also reduces the size and bulk of the battery.
This technology was recently designated one of the 10 emerging technologies in 2013 by the World Economic Forum, receiving much attention worldwide. Meanwhile, there's an growing interest in what's seen as energy with no limits, solar power. Since 2009, Korea's Land and Housing Corporation has been building public housing complexes using solar power and geothermal heat.
We have installed solar power generation facilities in 50,000 units, reducing the cost of electricity by 2.1 billion won.
Newly developed solar cells are reducing manufacturing costs by up to 70% compared to current solar technology. These boast a 12.3% efficiency rating, highest in the world, and have received a lot of attention with studies on it being published in journals such as Nature Photonics and Nano Letters. And with a finite oil supply, research into new biodiesel fuel also continues as we look for new sources. Beans and canola were popular sources in the past, but there are concerns about the rise in crop prices, potential food shortages, and the negative impact on the environment. There's a new fuel source that's gaining a lot of attention because it extracts biodiesel from plentiful green algae.
Very interesting. So when can we expect these dual fuel cars to be commercialized? When can I ride in one?
Well, the ammonium gasoline hybrid car, that's still looking at about 10 years out. There are a couple issues to deal with. Mostly it's actually the cost of ammonia being higher than the price of gasoline. So that's a little bit further off in the future. Now the hydrogen fuel cell cars, these are hopefully much closer. They're predicting by 2015. The biggest barrier right now is those cars are currently costing about $135,000, which is a little out of my price range. But when it comes down, hopefully they're hoping to bring it down to within the $25,000 to $35,000 range by 2015. So
that's a couple of years away.
Yeah, when you're talking about hydrogen fuel cell technology, I believe that Hyundai Motors is actually quite advanced. The Korean companies are very advanced out in that department.
So come 2015 or 10 years down the road, what are some of the obstacles, though, these new vehicles face when it comes to full commercialization?
Well, again, the fuel, for the ammonium hybrid especially. Yes, the fuel is going to be great. We can get it a lot cleaner. However, that means we have to transform a lot of existing fuel stations to have this ammonium gasoline hybrid fuel. A lot of distributors have to have it all over the place. That means if we want to have full distribution in Korea, nearly every gas station will have to have this available. Otherwise, the implementation will be very difficult.
So,
All right, you know, it sounds like companies do need to invest a lot more of their R&D and also their funding into lowering emissions, which is obviously beneficial for the environment. But this can also be a part of, an integral part of the future economy.
Oh, with the idea of lowering future emissions, you've probably heard the term cap and trade. A lot of people have tossed that around. A lot of people don't quite understand what it means. It's the idea that if we lower our emissions to below our expected levels or certain standards, we can actually sell the savings to other countries so that we can sell basically pollution rights, if you want to think of it that way. Now, some people don't like this idea of, well, why are we reducing our pollution just to turn around and sell the ability for other countries to pollute? Well, because we want to look at it at a global level. Not everyone can reduce their pollution levels in an economically sustainable way. So if we globally work together, international community comes together to try to balance this out so that we can take advantage of other countries that are more efficient, and less efficient countries can use that to help them become more environmentally friendly over the course of a time in an economically sustainable way. This is a holistic global way that we can look at trying to reduce emissions worldwide and hopefully do something about things like global warming and climate change.
Perfect world.
In a perfect world, yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you, David, for that.
Thank you.
Right, let's now go back to Idami. She joins us with a group of early birds, so let's go back to her and find out more about it. Back to you, Dami.
Over to you.
That's right, Minjang. I'm reporting live from Chungnam-gu, Seoul. And this morning I heard there is a safety patrol team that is out and about to make a safer environment this morning. Now this team has a name. It's called 출근 전 조기 살피미, or Morning Commute Safety Patrol. Basically their job is to give assistance to the residents of Chungnam-gu to make a safer environment. And right now this morning, we are seeing just a few specific places that usually are on their list whenever it comes to inspections. They usually check the surrounding areas of the bus stops and the subway exits and other traffic facilities. So right now what we're doing is making sure that the drain or there aren't any blockages so that the water can thoroughly go down into the drains. And especially with rain or monsoon season almost here, it's always crucial to double check to make sure that flood control facilities are in top-notch conditions. And as we move along this way, we can always check some of the other facilities that the public can make use of. So right here, we're seeing a bench that's not exactly in the proper place, and it's very loose. The nails are very loose. So in situations like this, what we want to do is just take a picture of the facility. Okay, we have a pad right here, and then 사진 찍으면 되는 거죠? All right, so what we want to do is take a picture of the facility that's loose right here. And then we want to report it back to the office. 네, 감사합니다. And if we move along this way, we can see some bicycle ramps that are broken as well. So this would be something that we would want to take pictures of to make sure to report it so that they can fix the facilities as quickly as possible just to make a safer environment. Now, of course, right here we are seeing the subway exit. Now, these inspections are planned to continue every Tuesdays and Thursdays from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. until the end of August. Now, I just wanted to mention that these workers, or the teams part of the Morning Commute Safety Patrol, their office hours start from 9 a.m. But this morning they're coming in early off hours just to help out, just to make and provide a safer environment. That was your look at the Morning Commute Safety Patrol. I'm Idami, Korea Today.
The number of breast cancer cases has quadrupled over the past 15 years in Korea. It's the second most common form of cancer for women in Korea. What can be done for prevention and treatment? We have more coming up.
Korean folk tales have been told in English thanks to the help of missionaries, but a renowned translator and naturalized Korean citizen, Brother Anthony of Daesae, has compiled all of these traditional tales in a book published recently titled Eerie Tales from Old Korea. Let's hear more from Brother Anthony himself. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Eerie Tales from Old Korea. Great title, by the way. So these stories were translated by two American missionaries some 100 years ago, right? So, and you've compiled them in a book. So a good starting point in our conversation would be to maybe talk about these missionaries first and why they've embarked on this endeavor.
Well, Homer Holbert and James Gale both came to Korea about the same time in the 1880s. and they're actually both born in 1863. And they were both very scholarly, very learned people, because arriving in Korea, they had also both to learn how to speak Korean, but at that time, all the written culture in Korea was done in Chinese, classical Chinese. So they also had to learn all those Chinese characters. They both of them studied Korean history, Korean culture, but they also, both of them actually had a literary sense. They liked literature, especially Gale, actually. And so Hulbert was publishing a review, monthly review called Korea Review from 1901 through 5. And he published his own history of Korea there, and then he had space left over. Nobody was writing enough for him. So he began to obviously adapt some of these popular tales. He doesn't say where he found them. Then about 10 years later, Gale published a whole book called Korean Folk Tales, where he says that what he has done is translate what are called yadam.
And you've picked 29 tales from the original publications. Why did you choose the ones that you chose?
Well, I like ghost stories. Some of the
we
stories...
all do, I think.
So that everybody likes ghost stories. Some of the other stories, they're fusion, sort of moralistic stories about noble daughters or whatever. And there are some love stories. So I thought, well, if this goes very, very well, we can always publish another volume of non-eerie tales. But we have enough tales, ghost tales and tokkebi and all sorts of spirit tales.
I see. Well, British authors, including Charles Dickens, is just one of many people who are fascinated by ghost stories. Now, what do you think draws people to these stories, and do you think they're relevant in today's world?
Well, nowadays people believe in ghosts just as much as they ever did, and they're always hoping to see a ghost, but they don't really want to see one. But, especially Korea isn't quite as ghost-ridden as England, because in English winter weather, you know, dark evenings and howling gales, and you always sort of feel, you know, there's a ghost looking over your shoulder somewhere. But
well,
anyway.
Korea has that Christian, that long-haired,
oh dear,
white...
yes. Well, there you are, yes.
Right. And do we see any of that in this book?
Not really, no. It's a strange mixture, actually. It's very interesting. When the missionaries first came, I think it's Gale says, no, it might be Hulbert who said, they asked Korean scholars, you know, do you have ghost stories? They said, oh, no, we only have serious literature. And it took years before he discovered the yadam and realized that, in fact, they do have these stories, which are similar in a way to those from China.
What's unique about Korean folk tales, do you think?
Well, actually, these stories, some of them, I think they are Korean because very often the hero is a clever guy. A young man who somehow overcomes adverse destiny and survives when through some kind of spirit influence or prophecy or something. He's supposed to die at 15. There's one who he's told, you will be a beggar and you'll die at 15. So instead of waiting for it to happen, he sort of searches it out. And in fact, he then gets beyond that and he survives beyond 15 and he becomes very, very rich. So lots of the heroes, either they become very rich, or once or twice they go down to hell, they die, they go to hell, and down in hell they say, oh, we don't want you, we got the wrong person, go back, you know, and things like that.
It's a great story. Is that your favorite story, do you?
I don't know, they're all good.
They're all good.
There are strange stories of animals. There's a cockerel and a centipede. No, a chicken and a centipede. And if they live long enough and accumulate enough sort of merit, they can turn into human beings. And there's great rivalry, deadly rivalry between chickens and centipedes. And there are stories of this kind of mysterious kind of conflict too.
Well, this is an interview, but I can feel myself being really engrossed in your stories.
Well, they're not my stories, they're their stories.
This must
they're
be a
very
good
stories.
book.
They're very nice stories. Yeah.
I see. Well, do you think there's an overarching theme of this book and maybe some lessons to be learned from this book?
Well, actually, they're very human-centered, really. I mean, there are these spirits and ghosts and all these things, but like I said, clever humans, sort of, if you use your mind and you sort of keep your eyes open, you can survive, and in fact you can become rich and happy. The heroes keep getting rich and happy.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Yeah,
and
I hope
can
you
I keep
enjoy
this
the
book?
book. Yes.
All right, thank you for coming out and talking to us this morning.
Very good.
And a great Tuesday morning to you all. Now we start things off with a big matchup taking place later tonight at the Seoul World Cup Stadium. That's right. We're talking about the World Cup qualifier between South Korea and Uzbekistan. Now both nations are in first place in Group A, and it won't be an easy match for the Taeguk Warriors. Now, it seems like after the Lebanon match last week, it's not just their defense that needs the fixing. The offense needs some changes as well. And despite manager Choi Gang-hee's trust in the Lion King Lee Dong-guk and the big man Kim Shin-wook, 21-year-old Son Heung-min will finally get the starting nod. While the start might be signs of desperation, it's good news for the youngster who needs the experience. Now, the match will take place later tonight at 8 p.m. Korea time. Well, the big news in the sporting world during the past 24 hours was, of course, Park In-bi winning her second straight LPGA major this season after beating Catriona Matthew in sudden death playoffs. Now, certainly winning one major is tough, two is, well, twice as hard, but already experts are wondering if she can pull off a Grand Slam this season. Of course, that won't come easy, as even Annika Sorensen failed to achieve that in a single season, and that also includes the legendary Park Se-ri. But experts believe that if there's one person who can pull it off, it's Park In-bi, who's currently ranked #1 in the world. But then again, starting this year, a fifth major was added to the tour, making it even harder. And now moving to the KBO, the 2013 KBO All-Star Game is still over a month away, but the fan voting began on Monday. Now, only a day has passed by, but looks like Oh Seung-hwan is going to be getting a lot of votes this year. Now, after the first day, the Samsung Lions closer has over 150,000 votes, which is most amongst any other players on the ballot. But what do you know, his teammate Lee Seung-yup, a fan favorite here in the nation, is second with just over 124,000 votes. At the same time, over on the Western team, another closer is getting a lot of votes, as LG Twins closer Bong Joon-gun currently has a little less than 110,000 votes, while last year's MVP Park Byung-ho, the next in heroes, right behind him at a little over 100,000 votes. And of course, speaking of all-star voting, same thing is going on over in the MPB in Japan, and of course, our focus is on big boy Lee Dae-ho. Looks like the South Korean slugger is actually currently second in the first base category, trailing Aniba Asunori of Nippon Am Fighters, who happens to be the same first baseman who got the starting nod over Lee Dae-ho last year, but still more time till the ballots close. So with that said, that wraps it up for me. This has been SJ. See you guys again tomorrow for your sports needs.
Hollywood actress Angelina Jolie recently made headlines by choosing to undergo a preventive double mastectomy in order to reduce her risks of getting breast cancer. And today we're going to learn more about breast cancer treatments and preventive measures. And with that, we have Dr. Alice Hyung-kyung-tan from Samsung Medical Center. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you feeling?
I'm doing well. Okay. So in terms of breast cancer screening, it's being diagnosed earlier and more frequently because of widespread mammography. The good news is that breast cancer is being diagnosed at earlier stages. So since 1991, there has been a 5-fold increase in the number of cases of breast cancer that are being diagnosed at the asymptomatic stage. Also, there's been a 30 to 50% increase in the number of cases that are being diagnosed at stages 0 to 1. So that's very good news.
Well, early diagnosis definitely is important, and we do hear about breast cancer quite a bit, but what's surprising is that even men, more and more men are being frequently diagnosed with breast cancer. We'll have a bit more on this in this next video.
Breast cancer is the second most common cancer found in women. The number of patients has jumped by 4-fold over the past 15 years, and 1 out of 25 women in Korea are said to fall victim to the cancer. What's noticeable about Korean women is the percentage of those diagnosed with breast cancer in their younger years is similar to Western countries like the US due to more westernized diets and lifestyle patterns. The best method as of now to prevent breast cancer is to conduct self-exams and undergo regular screening. With the growing number of patients in their 30s, it's important to detect the cancer early on. One of the most common methods of examination is receiving a mammogram using an X-ray, which captures an image of the breast tissue or a simpler ultrasound of the breast. A recent finding on how curry can help prevent breast cancer is receiving much attention.
This study uses curcumin extracted from turmeric. We compared a normal rat with one that had been fed curcumin and one that was injected with it. The result that the ones with curcumin showed double the effectiveness in preventing breast cancer.
News that Hollywood actress Angelina Jolie opted for a preventative double mastectomy generated a lot of discussion. She made her decision after learning that she carried a mutated BRCA gene, which increases the chances of getting breast cancer. The BRCA gene is important in terms of breast cancer. The protein made in this gene helps suppress cancer by fixing errors in the DNA. But when in an abnormal state, it can contribute to the growth of cancer.
If you have a mutation of the BRCA1 gene, the risk of getting breast cancer increases as you age. 60 to 80% fall victim to breast cancer.
Not all people need to receive a gene test. Only if determined to be at high risk is it recommended.
If someone in the family has a history of breast cancer, we look at their age and histology and conduct a gene test.
Tests for these genes can be conducted at 40 hospitals listed under the website of the Korean Hereditary Breast Cancer Study. For those with a mutated BRCA gene, a mastectomy can reduce the risk of cancer by 90%, but it is still not perfect. This is because breast tissue is spread across the chest, sometimes stretching into the armpit or clavicle areas and skin.
So mammograms and ultrasound screening, how often do you have to go, and what are some of the other screening methods?
Right, so in Korea, the National Cancer Center recommends mammography and clinical breast examination every 2 years starting at age 40. If there's a positive finding or a suspicious lesion or the breasts are especially dense, then the next step would be a breast ultrasound. Sometimes breast MRI can be used to diagnose breast cancer or screen for breast cancer in certain cases. But ultimately, many women require a breast biopsy to make a final diagnosis.
For women who've had breast augmentation, does it affect the chances of getting breast cancer or the treatment for it, as a matter of fact?
That's a very good controversial question. There was a study released 2 months ago out of a group in Canada that cautiously raised the concern that women who have had cosmetic breast augmentation may have worse breast cancer survival compared to women who've never had breast implants.
Oh, wow. Well, what's the conclusion? Still no.
More studies need to be done before we can make a conclusive
So the
statement.
studies are ongoing. Now, I mentioned that there are cases of breast cancer that occur in men. Now, this isn't frequent, it's rare, but it does happen.
Exactly. So breast cancer in men is very rare. However, there are certain conditions that can increase a man's risk for developing breast cancer. They would include alcoholic liver disease, enlarged male breasts, any irradiation to the chest, and also certain genetic inheritable conditions, like we saw in the video, the BRCA1 and 2 genetic mutations. So for a man who's had breast cancer, if there's a family history of not just breast cancer, but breast cancer, pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, and also ovarian cancer, then in that situation, he should probably receive genetic counseling and testing as well.
So it runs in the family, sort of.
If it is BRCA 1 and 2, yes, it does run in the family.
Okay, well, so tell us about the self-examination. That's what's really important, right?
Exactly. So remember Dr. Tan's 5 L's.
5 L's.
Five
Okay,
L's,
we're going to take notes.
The 5 L's of Dr. Tan.
Yeah, so look,
Look.
lift, then lie down,
lift, lie down,
and then feel for lumps,
feel for lumps,
and assess for leakage.
leakage.
Okay, so let's go over those 5. You want to start first by looking in front of a mirror with your hands to your side. You're looking at the skin of the breast to assess for any changes in the texture, in the color. Look for any dents or dimples. Also, changes in the nipple architecture is also a warning sign. Next, you want to lift your arms above your head and look from side to side. You can also lift the breast to make sure you get a good look underneath. Okay. The next step would be to lie down.
Okay.
And using the pads of the 3 middle fingers of your opposite hand. So your left arm will be above your head, and you use your right hand, the pads of the fingers. You want to use a circular movement to examine the breast. You want to start with the tissue near the armpit and work your way down.
Why is it important to lie down? Just a quick question.
Right, so you want the breast as flat as possible against the chest, so you can get a good feel. And you want to use sort of a scanning motion back and forth across the breast.
I think I found something here.
Right, so this would be a lump. So you're feeling for lumps.
It's hard.
Lumps that are concerning are hard, sort of fixed to the skin. Also, if it has an irregular contour or a new lump, that would be a warning sign. Finally, you want to assess for any leakage from the nipples. You want to squeeze the nipple and see if there's any discharge, abnormal discharge. Bloody nipple discharge is a particularly dangerous sign, and that needs to be brought to the attention of your nurse or doctor immediately.
And doctor, quick question. Does this test apply for men also?
So for men, if the man has the BRCA 1 or 2 genetic mutation, there are certain surveillance guidelines, and certainly a self-breast examination is part of the guidelines.
Okay, so if there's any kind of an irregular lump other than muscle tissue that you know of, then maybe getting a check might be an option.
Exactly.
And how often do you recommend doing this self-examination?
A self-examination should be done once a month.
Once a month.
In premenopausal women, it should be done the week after the period ends.
Okay.
In postmenopausal women, they should just set at the same time every month, like the first day of the month, to do their breast exam once a month.
All right. Thank you. That was very useful. I'm going to use these tips. Look, lift, lie down, look for lumps, leakage.
The 5 L's of Dr. Tan.
Exactly.
Right.
Definitely. In any form of cancer, early diagnosis is the best way to prevent life-threatening, develop into a life-threatening situation.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Tan, for that. See you
You're
next
welcome.
week.
Okay.
All right. That brings us to the end of this edition of Korea Today.
That's right. Have a great day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow, 7 a.m.
Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.